So today in this video we are going to talk about the 3 levels of any relationship. These levels are obviously from a mental point of view, and this is a concept which I have come up by myself. So do share your thoughts in the comment section. So what are these 3 levels? The first level in this is the fantasy level. The second one is the reality level. The third level is the overthinking level. So now in the fantasy level, it will always have a positive outlook to everything you look at. So the things you perceive will always have a positive notion to it. And these are basically the thoughts you want to be true. You wish these were the reality, but it's not. It's just a thought which you are trying to fantasize as per your wishes onto some person, thinking that is how they are. So you are basically fantasizing about how a person basically is. That is the fantasy level. The second level is the reality level, where you just take things as they come. You don't add any layers to it, or you don't remove any layers to it. You just take it as it is and you accept the way it is. So that is the reality level, where you are in touch with the reality. The third level is the overthinking level. And overthinking usually has a very negative notion to everything surrounding it. Whenever you say you are overthinking, it will never be about anything positive. It will always be about I'm not good enough. I'm not looked at as a good person by others, or people always try to see me as something, whatever. Everything surrounding overthinking will always have a negative notion. I mean, if you really think about it, nobody fantasizes about, I'm a really bad person. How awesomely bad person I am. Nobody does that. Because whenever it's a negative notion to a thought, it will always come under the overthinking aspect, where you just keep on building on the thought. So basically the overthinking level surrounds itself with the negative thoughts. So as you saw before, these are the 3 levels: the fantasy level, the reality level, and the overthinking level. Now, when you meet a person for the first time, and when you like that person for how they look or whatever the reason is, you enter the fantasy level first. Initially, if you think about it, whenever you try to, get to know someone and you like them even before getting to know them, you always enter the fantasy level where you want to like them, because you have already started liking them even before. So initially what happens in a relationship, you try to perceive everything positive about a person, and you completely ignore the negatives, because you just want to look at the positives, because the initial thought of any relationship or trying to get into any relationship will always be around trying to know the person better, but trying to know the person's positive sides, not the negative sides. That's how we think. Now, as time passes by, everybody takes their own time to get from the fantasy level to the reality level. And if things don't go right the way they want the relationship to move forward, they will try to go to the overthinking stage. So, when a person enters into a relationship trying to look at all the positives, after a certain period of time, you understand how the person is. And when you start getting to know that person inside and out, and in their own way, because in every relationship there will be certain period, like the initial period, which will vary with individuals. That amount of period they will always try to be their best and show their best side, because they want to be liked by the other person. Now, if the person whom you are trying to establish the relationship with, if they have entered that phase where you have accepted for how they are, you are ready to accept, to see their flaws and accept them as they are. You don't want to change that, because you know that the core individual in that person is a good person. And that is when you arrive at the reality level, where you accept the person as to however they are. Now, if after the fantasy phase where you start thinking that this person is like this person is so good, they treat me really well, or over and over again, and after a certain period of time you start seeing that how you perceive them mentally to how their behavior is in the reality is completely opposite. That is where the clash happens, because trying to understand how you perceive them versus how they are in reality, if the gap is too much, you see them as a different person to how they are. This difference will cause you to skip the reality level, because you don't want to see that, you don't want to get into that phase at all, because it is very hard to accept. You directly go into the overthinking level, where you are just like, how did it happen, why are they like this, how when they changed, why did it happen, why did I deserve this, what did I do to deserve this, all those things comes into your mind. Now the thing you have to understand here is, the person didn't change anywhere. It's just that you were in the fantasy level for so long and always wanted to see them as this person you have in your head. You just keep thinking of them as the individual in your head, not as the individual they are. So when a person takes too long in the fantasy level and doesn't understand that the reality of that person is this and this is how they are, it will be difficult for the person to get into the relationship for a longer period of time, because the difference is way too much to even accept that change, because it's not a change of the person, it's more change of your mental aspect versus the reality. That's all. So say for example, two people are in love. First thing, like we said, fantasy level, where everything they do you start liking the small things, because you have already developed lot of notions about them, that this is the kind of person they are. They do so many sweet things, and I really like them how they do it. It is like sweet moments, sweet this, sweet that, everything is sweet. So if the transition from the fantasy level to the reality level, if it is done smoothly, it will be easier for the person to understand how the person actually is, look at their flaws, and be able to accept them for however they are, like I said before. So what happens is, in reality level, when you get to the reality level, small things which were cute during the fantasy level will all start becoming like an irritating thing, because those will be the ones causing the issues. Now you know the person enough that you think that these were not cute in the first place. Now these are the things which are causing the issues. So small things like teasing you, or trying to do something very silly, which look very cute during the fantasy level, in the reality level it will start becoming irritating, it will start frustrating you, because you are seeing the flaws. Now you are trying to see the things which makes them human, basically. If that acceptance isn't there, that is where the issue starts. That is where you start overthinking about the relationship. And now in this, if it is too much to take in, the transition is too much to take in, where the acceptance is just like, I just cannot take it. What some people try to do is, they try to get away from the relationship, create that space, and try to re-enter into the fantasy level. Example, people were in a relationship, they fought, did something, said like this is done, and they leave to their own places. Now they are thinking about all the fantasy level thoughts about that person, how they tried to do these things, how they made these efforts, how they were actually sweet, because it's all in your head. The reality and the person in your fantasy level are completely different. This is a person you have built up with the same face. It's a mental image of a person, not the reality. Because when you are away from a person, you always try to think of how you want to think about them. If you want to think about them in a negative manner, you will think about them in a negative manner. If their face pops up and you have bad experiences with that person, you will think about all the bad stuff about them. But if you are in a state of mind where you really want to stay in the relationship, even when they have not treated you right, you will try to think of all the positive things, trying to push yourself in that zone, in the fantasy level, to try to create that image and modify it and patch all the bad patches up to make the person feel complete in your fantasy mind, not in the reality. The reality, the person has not changed at all. The reality is you have created an image. The reality, the person is different, and when you meet that person physically, it is completely different picture to how you perceive them when you are by yourself, because the mental image is like very polished. They don't have any flaws at all. But when in reality they have not changed, they still don't treat the person right, they still make you feel many things which you shouldn't be. But you want this fantasy level, fantasy person to become the reality. It cannot happen, because if you fail to see the difference, it's just going to mess up everything up in a very bad manner, and you are going to get stuck in the overthinking phase where you are like, oh my god, what happened in the relationship that it got messed up so much? It got messed up because you just failed to see the person as they are. You just skipped the reality level. That's all. That's the issue. Or say, for example, two people are in love. For a certain period of time, they have been in the love phase, and after a certain period, they have decided to get married. Now, in this period of starting to love to getting to marriage, if you have made the transition from the fantasy level to the reality level, where you have checked with the other person about how you would handle finance, how you would pay the bills, how we would make measures whenever some situation comes up, how we will communicate, how we will express things, how the other person will perceive it, everything. If everything has been communicated before the marriage, the transition from loving a relationship to marriage will be a lot smoother, because reality has been entered before marriage itself. But there are certain people who will always be in the fantasy level throughout their loving phase, and when marriage comes up and they are married, the next day they pop up into the reality level and they just cannot take it, and they think that that person has changed completely in one day. Never the case. The case is, you just didn't see the person in the reality level. You always had them in the fantasy level, where every time you wanted to chat with them, call them, interact with them or go out with them, it was always the fantasy level individual trying to get projected in reality. But it is not the reality. It is your fantasy, which is just allowing you to not see the bad things or the things which will become problematic in the future, because everybody has flaws. When a person has gone through a lot in their past with their relationship, with whatever relationship, I'm not just talking about romantic relationship alone, any relationship for that matter, if they have gone through a lot, they will always try to look at themselves as, hey, this is how I am, because they don't want to get hurt. They will always try to portray whatever they are. They are like, this is how I am. If you are okay with it, stay, otherwise go. These are the kind of people who are in touch with the reality because they don't want to get hurt. And these kind of individuals will have much more sustainable relationship, because they are in touch with the reality and they have the ability to take people as they come and accept however they are. See, accepting however they are doesn't mean blindly going in and just taking it all in and be like, okay, I'm okay with this. No, it's about understanding how they are in reality. Because like we said, fantasy level, there is one individual created by you, and there is one individual who is real, who is the one functioning and doing all the things. You just need to see them rather than seeing your mental image of that person. That's all there is. It doesn't mean this person doesn't have anything to change. Change will happen if it's needed. If there is a need for it, change will happen. But accepting the person as it is basically means seeing the real person, not the mental image of that person you have built. That's all. So what are the things that are needed to get from fantasy level to reality level? If a person is caring, shows love, gives you the attention, you are able to communicate with them freely. We are able to express things as they are and not try to, put on more layers to it, not put on more filters to it, just so it becomes acceptable. Instead, you are just being real, being raw, and it is being accepted because whatever information is being put across is being reciprocated in a good manner. So reciprocation is also very important. Then they provide you a space to be vulnerable, where you feel safe to be in the most, like, whatever form you want to be. If you don't feel good, where you just want to express all the things which are very vulnerable to you, and that is being accepted in a very respectful manner and received you in a respectful manner, then the transition from fantasy to reality happens much smoother, because you know that this person has a very good core. So now you are ready to look at their flaws. That's all. Because if you look at the flaws initially, you start feeling like, oh my god, I don't want to be this. Because there is a lot of fear surrounding a person's flaws. But everybody has flaws. Everybody has good, characters as well. And to cover everything up, reassurance. Whenever you are in a relationship, if the other person can reassure about how the relationship is and what they feel about the relationship, each other, both of them, it always goes two ways. It's never single way. It cannot be a single way thing. Relationship always goes two ways. Okay? Reassurance will make them understand that this is the time where they are ready to see the real person. This period varies from individual to individual. Some take 2-3 months, some take year, some never see it because they are just too busy in their fantasy level. Now, when it comes to overthinking we all do. And when in a relationship, when they have not reciprocated the way you wanted them to, completely gone. You are like, what is happening? Why is it happening? What happened? Every question starts to pop up. Now, in this phase, if the things which were said about fantasy to reality, if those are not fulfilled, you come to the overthinking level. And in overthinking level, you have to understand that there are issues. How are you going to resolve it? In this self-reassurance, where you assure yourself about how the relationship is, but if you are not able to look at the reality, then it becomes very tough. Then you have to understand that you have to make a call on the relationship. If it's too much, you will try to skip the reality, and if you skip the reality, then you are getting into a phase of trying to get stuck in a loop of overthinking, then getting into the fantasy level and trying to think about the person very differently to how they are, and those complications will just mess it up completely. So self-reassurance about how you actually think about the person is versus how they are in reality. If both are in sync and if you are not able to accept it, you have to take measures to accept those things. If you are able to do that, then you will be able to work on the relationship. If you are not, then the relationship is going to get messed up. Very simple. In this self-reassurance, one thing, self-belief. How do you see yourself as an individual? When you look at an individual, what are the things you actually look in as a person? what kind of characteristics, what kind of traits you look into them. These kind of things you have to understand for yourself, so that you have belief in yourself in choosing the right individuals. You can make mistakes. It's not like you have to be perfect in everything you do, but it's about whether you are willing to learn while you make mistakes. If you are in a constant loop of making mistakes, where are you going to end this loop? So self-belief. Hope. Hope is really important because you should see that hope in yourself, not the other person. If you are putting the hope on other person, you are depending on them for your well-being, and that is not going to end up well. So hope on yourself that you will find a person who will treat you well, who will make you feel good about yourself, and who will respect you for the way you are. That hope has to be within you, not the other person. Never put the hope on anybody else, because if you put the hope in you, you will see that hope in others. Remember that. And last, retrospection. Am I really being realistic in my expectations about what I think about an individual, how I think about them, the kind of images I create about them? Am I actually looking at them in a proper way, in a realistic manner? Or am I completely out of proportion and just making them, become this ultra fantasized version of what a normal individual just cannot be? So, retrospection. Try to ask yourself questions about whether you are being realistic in your thoughts, in your behavior, in your expectations, in your mental image about an individual. All the things. If these things are made clear, and if you get lot of answers from getting into this phase of overthinking, you will understand that it is possible to get back to the reality level, because at the end of the day, everybody wants a sustainable relationship where you respect each other and there is space for you to communicate everything with each other. And if everything gets completed, love is always going to be there. So what we need to understand here is, the thought is not to remove these fantasy level or the completely stop overthinking about anything. The thought is to try and bridge this gap and get the fantasy level in touch with the reality. As you can see in this diagram, the thought is to bridge that gap. Why? Because whenever your mind is like getting into the fantasy level at the top, you again drop to get in touch with the reality. So this up and down wave of the fantasy level allows you to be in touch with the reality, but also have that small expectation of that individual in the fantasy level. Like, what if they are like this? It's like a special feeling, but you're also always coming back to reality. So it keeps a check on how you are, what kind of phase you are in, how you are taking it. It becomes easier on you to be realistic, but also have that slight notion or expectation from another person, because there is a space where you want things to be this way. So if you are able to achieve that by communicating and putting things across, and efforts are being made for that both ways, why not? Same goes for overthinking as well. When you're overthinking, when that person gives you that reassurance, and you assure yourself that this is how it is, it's okay, I'm here for you. If that reassurance is given on a consistent basis, when the overthinking happens, you come back to reality. When the overthinking happens, you come back to reality. So if you try to bridge the gap, it becomes easier on you as an individual to always be in touch with the reality. Okay, now coming on to the overthinking aspect of things, when I said about being in touch with the reality even when you are in overthinking phase, what you can do is you can ask questions from a reality point of view to get a clearer picture. You think like in the overthinking phase you are like, oh my god, they don't like me at all. Now when you say that they don't like you, did they mention it? Ask questions like that to yourself and answer very honestly. Did they ever verbally mention that they don't like you? Did people actually do things in action that they said they don't like you? If that is not the case, why am I thinking this way? What is the reason I am feeling this way? Because reality, when it happens, is different to the feeling you have. Feeling is legit, but why you are feeling, that you have to understand. So asking you questions like whether I am being real. Did they say things verbally that they really don't like me? Or am I thinking about it myself? When you say or think that they don't like me, it's not like they have done something or said something like that at all. It's just that your thought and expectation which you have in your mind, which you have never expressed or communicated, but you just expected from the other individual, are not met. So you are like, this person should behave like this with me, and they should show these kind of characteristics or this kind of behavior with me, but you never communicated it, but you are expecting that. Now this expectation is not fulfilled from that person you like, and now you are automatically thinking that they have not done what I am thinking in my mind, so they don't like me. They are not making the effort to make me feel this thought I am having. So if you are not able to express things verbally and communicate things you actually want, that is never going to be fulfilled. Nobody is a mind reader in a relationship to understand the thoughts you are having. So putting it across always helps. And this also allows you to get out of the overthinking level and not being stuck in it for too long. So if any relationship allows you and gives you the space to put things across, share your likes and dislikes, certain behaviors or certain activities which you don't like are being put across and is understood or taken in and received or perceived by the other individual, for both. They have their issues, you have your issues, both are sharing and sharing it with each other. Okay, not like one way, everything is two way. So now when they do that verbally and when things are communicated, it's not like I am expecting this, I am saying it verbally, do it. No, it's about you sharing things to them and them saying, okay, I understand that you want this and I will try to do this from now on. So try to give me some time, or if I have to change this thing about me, I am willing to change, but up to this level, where you have to find a middle ground. It can't be like I have expected this, so complete it fully as per my expectation. Cannot happen. You have to respect the other individual for how they are. So when they are trying to make an effort, appreciate the effort and try to find a middle ground where both are happy. And when that action is fulfilled, appreciate the effort being taken. So that helps in making the bond stronger and mentally you creating the space where you feel like you are being heard, you are being understood, you are being respected, and you are being cared for by a person who is willing to make efforts to sustain the relationship. That's all. Live happily, have good relationships, because relationships in any form, whatever they are definitely required as individuals, and I hope this concept allowed you to look at things from a different perspective, because that is the thought behind all these videos. So do share your thoughts in the comment section, because I want to communicate with lot of people and know your perspectives as well regarding what you think about this. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.